Hello, good day. This is Josh. How are you? I have seen another motion picture. They're just piling up this year. They won't stop releasing them, and I can't stop seeing them. Before I forget names, let me just say that Heretic is a new horror movie made by Beck and Woods. Those are the last names of the two dudes who directed it. Their previous movie was called 65, and it had Adam Driver shooting dinosaurs on some other planet. I don't know, I didn't see it. It had middling reception. As far as I understand, it was a genre movie, but that was kind of loaded with some drama that worked for some people and not others. It stars Sophie Thatcher and Chloe East as two LDS, Latter-day Saints missionaries who are going around their territory, knocking on doors, in this case, responding to expressions of interest to see who they can recruit and get that, that ultimate victory of baptizing someone into their church. And they come to the home of Mr. Reed, played by Hugh Grant, who is firmly in his campy villain era, in his, scene chewing. He's just doing the same hapless, oh shucks, oh no, charming Hugh Grant stuff, but he's older and he's doing it in context where it is contrasted and villainous, and we love it. We can't get enough of it, and he really does carry this movie, which I think is a success. I really had a good time with Heretic. If I didn't say it already, the movie's called Heretic, which is not a great title for what this movie is, just if you know about the history of religion and the actual word heretic and what it connotes. It doesn't really apply to this movie, but that's maybe if I do like a spoiler talk, or maybe if I launch that podcast about religion and movies that I've been teasing for a long time, maybe I can talk about that kind of stuff there. But as far as a movie, it's an A24, and it's a horror movie, and it is a horror movie. It has some ghastly stuff in it and some surprises and stuff like that, but it is it's more of a psychological thriller until it isn't. And it's one of those movies where it has a great build-up, it has a great premise, it has a really good opening act, and then once everything kind of gets going, it devolves into, this again, I don't want to heap criticism on it, because this is just how many movies work. Even movies that I loved, like Barbarian and Longlegs, I would put this maybe not in the tier with those movies, but in that kind of category of movies with a high concept premise that is very well established and laid out. And then once you get to past the point in the movie where this is what's really going on, it's diminishing returns, and they have to do something. They have to reveal something. They have to tie the story up somehow. And I do like how this movie ends at the very end. It's one of those ones where there could be a little discussion about what's going on at the very, very end. But just the whole third act and the way everything unfolds, and when you find out, what the villain's real plan is, it's kind of one of those things like, oh, okay, really? All right. So he did all that. They did all that. It's one of those things. And you just, if the movie's good and entertaining, you let it go and you don't worry about those things. And there's been a lot of movies this year that have been on that line of like, well, I'll let it go because it's well written and it's entertaining and I like these actors. But I don't know, it's a rare movie that like nails the landing as well as the build-up and all that. But still, this movie is great. It's not all on Hugh Grant, because these girls are very, very charming. And so essentially they are, as I mentioned, they are Mormon missionaries, and he is someone who has perhaps expressed interest in learning more about our Savior Jesus Christ. And when they come to his house to talk to him, he kind of, if you've seen the trailer, he basically traps them there. But what does he want? And it's kind of that journey of finding out what he wants that, again, starts off mysterious, becomes very, very interesting in their discussions. And then once it turns into like third act horror stuff, it's kind of like, all right, well, we're not on planet Earth anymore. But when it is on planet Earth, I find it very fascinating. And again, I might get into this more in another context, but essentially he's someone who is obsessed with holding religion responsible for what he perceives as the lies that it tells. And, he's kind of obsessed with the pursuit of truth, but the relativity of truth. And he wants, essentially, he wants a lot of things, but we begin to suspect that he wants to put these young women into a situation that will force them to rethink their faith. But the issue is, of course, whether or not you're sympathetic to his ideas or their belief. And it's very interesting to choose LDS. They're not just Christians. They are, in a very specific sect that believes they are the only true faith. So ideologically or theologically, you might start out actually thinking that he's the one who's talking sense. But at the same time, he is menacing these young women and making them afraid, which is no way to conduct any kind of reasonable discussion. So you sympathize and empathize with them. So I think that's where this movie is very clever, is it could just be very simply atheists versus believers. But there's an interesting dynamic between the girls and which one of them is perhaps harboring doubts. And then, even that has some twists and turns, and they both have dimensions that you don't expect. And then what Mr. Reed is actually up to, so it's good. It could have paid off better. It could have gone somewhere. It could have said more, because ultimately, like I say, the third act it loses its thread, and it doesn't. I don't know what it's trying to say by that point. But as someone who is interested in the question of faith and religion and the pursuit of truth, and to what degree it's even available to us to do so, I found all of the trappings of this movie and all of the kind of like premise and world building, I found that all fascinating. It's very much my jam. So and Hugh Grant is delightful. This is a good movie. Check it out if you're so inclined. It's an A24, so it's elevated horror. So you're being a very cosmopolitan, well-rounded person if you see it. Whatever. But that's Heretic. The title. The title, again, I'll talk about it maybe somewhere else if I do a spoiler review, maybe on the podcast. But he's not a heretic. A heretic means something very specific. Heretic is not just someone who's like the evil version of a religious person or who believes the wrong things. It literally just means someone who believes something different. And so in order for there to be a heretic, there has to be an orthodoxy, which is something that people invent, by the way. And so there's different versions of orthodoxy, and then each orthodoxy has a different definition for what a heretic is. But anyway, they're just trying to use a word that has a lot of like sinister baggage and is negative, and it's fine. It's a fine title. It's just not precise because that's not really what's going on here. I guess someone could make an argument that it was, and I'd love to have that argument, and I'd love to get really just, come to blows. I would love to really have it out with somebody. Just kidding. Thanks for watching. You can follow me here on YouTube. You can like and share. There's a podcast feed and a Patreon that are both linked in the description if you want more and if you want to support the silly stuff that I do. But it's always a pleasure to talk to you about the movies. This week was Here and Heretic, and that was quite an alphabetical ride. But thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you again very soon. Josh out.